All right, today, the House Oversight Committee Democrats took the Jeffrey Epstein investigation back to what they call the scene of the crimes, Palm Beach County, Florida, where Epstein recruited, trafficked, and abused underage girls and young women for years. It's also the place where prosecutors had the opportunity nearly 20 years ago to put Epstein away for good. Instead, the former federal prosecutor, Alex Acosta, who later became a member of Donald Trump's cabinet, oversaw the sweetheart deal that Epstein got that outrageously allowed him to serve just 13 months in jail, most of which was on work release after pleading guilty to state charges of solicitation of prostitution and of procuring a minor for prostitution. For nearly 3 hours today, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee held what they called a shadow hearing in West Palm Beach, allowing survivors of Epstein's abuse to tell their stories in a formal hearing setting for the first time.
When I was 14 years old, I was abused by Jeffrey Epstein. He abused me until I was 17 years old. What happened to me was terrible, but what happened after that by our own government changed my life just as much. I came here today to ask for one simple thing, to make sure this never happens again. I filed a case under the Crime Victims' Rights Act because government secretly made a deal with Jeffrey Epstein. They signed a non-prosecution agreement. They made the deal behind closed doors. They never told me, and they never told any of us. Instead, they sent letters telling me to be patient, even though they knew the case was already over. For years, I believed there was an investigation happening. There wasn't. When I found out the truth, I went to my lawyer, Brad Edwards. He took my case in 2008, and he fought for me against the government for over a decade. We wanted to do the right thing for all victims. Together, we wanted answers to a simple question: how could this happen?
I was abused by Jeffrey Epstein in 2004 and 2005. That was 8 years after Maria Farmer first reported Jeffrey to the FBI. Although discussing my abuse is far from easy, I live with diagnosed PTSD from that experience. My story is actually one of the safest stories to tell. The key abuser who caused me physical harm is dead. It's imperative to understand that the stories you are hearing today are a tiny fraction of the whole. I am one of more than 1,200 girls and women.
Joining us now is the Democratic Congressman Maxwell Frost of Florida. He's a member of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, thanks for being here today. I'm fascinated that we have to tell people that this was a shadow hearing. Why did it have to be a shadow hearing? Why we have hearings in Congress for all sorts of things all the time? Why couldn't these women's voices have been heard by the Congress of the United States?
Because James Comer, the chair of the Oversight Committee, is engaged in obstructing this investigation and completely doing everything he can to help the White House cover this up. And, you know, I wouldn't have said that maybe 5 or 6 months ago. We still would come up to brick walls. He still, of course, was always giving the president the benefit of the doubt. But what we've seen over the last few months is despicable. And for people who don't know, a shadow hearing is where we as the minority party, right, are unable to get the majority to call a hearing with us so we could do it here in the Capitol, right, here in Washington, D.C., and have a legitimate actual hearing. And so we take it upon ourselves to host what we call a shadow hearing. But everyone should know it was all Democrats today. We want to host this here in D.C., but James Comer doesn't want to call any more hearings because he knows that we would be able to successfully issue more subpoenas to move this investigation forward.
If and when Democrats win in November, and I know that there are other issues that people are concerned about, and things like affordability and health care and immigration, all valid issues, but will one of the things that changes be that the United States Congress will actually give these women a voice?
110%, because in the majority, we will be able to call all the hearings we want. We'll be able to put forth all the subpoenas we want, and we won't have to sit here and essentially demand and beg of the chair to do his damn job. And people should know we haven't had a hearing in several weeks. Why? Because when we have a hearing, we have the ability to put motions forward to issue subpoenas, which we believe we have enough Republicans on the other side that would actually join us for it. So he's done this despicable thing where we haven't had a hearing in a long time, and he's hosting what he calls roundtables, which are unofficial hearings that are actually off the record, not under oath. And he's only calling those because he doesn't want us to move the Epstein investigation forward.
There was a so-called new survivor, Rosa, who had emotional testimony today, in large part because she was one of these people who says her name was only brought forward in the documents that were exposed. I want to listen to a little bit of what she said today.
I stepped forward along other survivors, hoping those who allowed this to happen will be held accountable. I kept my identity protected as Jane Doe. I woke up one day with my name mentioned over 500 times. While the rich and powerful remained protected by redaction, my name was exposed to the world. Now reporters from across the globe contact me. I cannot live without looking over my shoulder.
Now, the woman sitting on her right, our left, had said her testimony is the safest because her abuser is dead. There is a real concern that these women have, that their abusers are rich and powerful people. They're not. They have virtually no voice. They couldn't get a hearing from the Department of Justice. They couldn't get a hearing from Congress, and then their name's out there.
That's exactly what happened. She woke up one morning and she's all over the Epstein files. And everyone should know that they took care, the Department of Justice did everything they could to redact the name of billionaires, elites, and people who Donald Trump wanted to protect. This is public knowledge, and this is part of the reason why she was breaking down there. She didn't make the decision to do this really all by herself. She was forced into this, which is despicable and disgusting, especially when you have a Department of Justice and the Republicans on the other side of the aisle who've said every time, we care about the survivors, we care about this no matter who you are. BS, you don't. And it's the reason why Rosa had her name out in the public over 500 times. And, you know, I want to say one thing, too. I had a back and forth with her. We spoke a little bit about her situation, the fact that she came here as an immigrant and her immigration status was taken advantage of. And we know that people who are victims of human trafficking are disproportionately immigrants. So maybe if we spent even a modicum of the amount of money and resources that this administration is using to terrorize immigrants across the country through ICE to actually investigating the Epstein files and prosecuting billionaire pedophiles and human traffickers, maybe we'd have some justice on this.
Congressman, good to talk to you tonight. Not a good topic, but I'm glad you guys are on it. Thank you for being with us. Florida Congressman Maxwell Frost, who's a member of the House Oversight Committee.